Hey guys, tonight we're staying very close to home. So close that we never even leave the yard. We're going to sit beside a courtyard well, the kind that once sat in the middle of houses, farms, and townhomes, quietly solving thirst day after day. No pumps humming, no pipes hidden in walls, just a circle of stone, a rope, a bucket, and a rhythm that shaped how people moved, worked, and rested. If you enjoy cozy survival history and slow, practical details, make yourself comfortable and let's drift into the gentle world of courtyard wells and thirst calm. The courtyard as a little world. Before taps and pipes, the courtyard was a tiny universe. Four walls or buildings around, sky above, hard-packed earth or stone underfoot. Inside that small rectangle, almost everything happened. Washing, drying clothes, chopping wood, preparing food, mending tools, talking, and yes, drawing water. The well was often in the center of the yard, or slightly off-center, but still easy to reach from kitchen doors and storage rooms. It wasn't ornamental, it was logistical. And because everyone needed it, the well became a quiet daily meeting point, like a soft heartbeat in the middle of the house. Why put the well inside the yard? Bringing the water source into the courtyard solved several simple, powerful problems. Safety. You didn't need to send children or tired adults out into dark streets or across fields at night just to fetch water. A courtyard well shortened night journeys to a few steps. Convenience. Cooking, washing, brewing, cleaning, all easier when the water is right there. Control. The household could protect the well from animals, trash, and casual contamination more easily inside walls than out in a public lane. Privacy and modesty. Washing hands, faces, even clothes or hair near the well could be done away from public eyes. A well inside the courtyard turns water access from a risky errand into part of the home's calm routine. The shape of a quiet well. Imagine stepping into that courtyard. The well isn't dramatic. It might just be a round stone curb, smooth on top from years of hands and buckets, a low wall around the shaft, high enough to prevent falling in. Sometimes a simple wooden or stone cover to keep leaves and dust out. Perhaps a post and beam overhead with a rope or chain and a handle to wind. It doesn't shout for attention. It waits. The curb is just wide enough to sit on. Children lean their elbows on it. Adults rest a foot there while talking. A cloth might be spread over it for a moment, then pulled away when someone needs to draw water. In many houses, the well's edge quietly doubles as a bench, a table, and a boundary between down there and up here. Depth and coolness, the feel of the water. Courtyard wells usually reach into groundwater, deep enough that the water stays cool even in summer. Drawing a bucket up, people felt the coolness through the wood or clay, the weight changing as the bucket left the water and entered air. The sound of water streaming off the sides, the faint slosh as it swung. In hot seasons, just touching that bucket could calm you. It was like holding a piece of underground shade. That coolness shapes daily habits. Water stored indoors in clay jars stays fresher. Drinking becomes a small ceremony. Dip, pour, share. Even rinsing your hands feels like a reset of the day. The rope and the handle. Everyday mechanics. The mechanics of a courtyard well are simple but soothing. A rope or chain wrapped around a wooden drum or passing over a wheel. A handle or crank that you turn slowly. A bucket rising from the darkness. No engines, no sudden noises, just the creak of the wood, the soft scrape of rope against stone, the click of the handle when you pause. Drawing water becomes a slow movement you can do half awake in the morning or half asleep at night. Your muscles remember how far to turn. Your hands know when the bucket is nearly up from the way the tension changes. It's the opposite of a rush. It's a deliberate, rhythmic task.
Thirst calm, knowing water is close. The real gift of a courtyard well isn't just water, it's calm. When you know there is a reliable water source a few steps from your bed, your body feels safer. If you wake thirsty in the night, you can fetch water without walking through dark streets. If someone is sick, you can rinse cloths and cups right there. If a stray ember or small fire needs to be put out, a bucket is always possible. That nearness reduces a quiet kind of stress we rarely name, the fear of, what if there's no water when I need it? With a courtyard well, the house can sleep more easily. It's like having a steady, silent promise in the middle of the yard. Shared chore, shared rhythm. Because everyone uses the well, it naturally structures the day. Morning, someone draws water for cooking and washing. Jars and pitchers are filled for the day's work. Midday, more water for cleaning dishes, rinsing vegetables, cooling someone's face in heat. Evening, last buckets drawn before rest, washing hands and feet, preparing water for night needs. Different voices, different ages, but the same ring of stone, the same wooden creak, the same splash. Those tiny repeated sounds become the soundtrack of the courtyard, a gentle background that tells you life is continuing, nothing is wrong. A sleepy ending scene. Now let your mind sit beside one of these wells. It's late evening in a walled courtyard. The sky above is a deep blue bowl, a few early stars appearing. The walls hold back the wind, so the air is still and mild. In the center, the well curb glows softly in lamplight from a nearby doorway. A clay jar waits on the ground. Someone steps out barefoot, carrying a small lantern. They hook the bucket onto the rope, let it descend with a quiet hiss, then turn the handle slowly. You hear the soft creak of wood, the faint echo from the shaft as the bucket touches water, the gentle slosh as it rises, the splash as it's poured into the jar. They fill what's needed, cover the well, and pause for a moment with their hand resting on the stone edge. The courtyard is calm. The water is ready for the night. There is nothing left to worry about. Then they take the jar inside and close the door. The well remains alone in the quiet yard, holding its cool darkness for tomorrow. You can borrow that feeling now. Let your thoughts be like the yard walls, your breath like the rope, and your calm like the water waiting below. Quiet, deep, enough. Nothing urgent, nothing missing, just a well in the middle of your night and the chance to rest.
Once the well is in the courtyard, the real story begins. Because water doesn't live only in the ground. It moves. It takes a gentle path from deep earth to lip of stone, from bucket to jar, from jar to cup, from cup to throat, from washing bowl to drain. That path becomes one of the house's softest rhythms. Tonight we'll follow that rhythm, the buckets, the jars, the carried slosh of water, and how those simple objects turned a courtyard well into a calm, house-wide system. Morning buckets, starting the day's supply. Before the sun climbs too high, someone usually meets the well. It might be the same person each day, or whoever wakes first, or a rota shared among family members. They come with empty containers stacked or nested, wooden buckets, clay jars, maybe a metal pail if times have changed a little. The first drawing of the day has a different mood. The courtyard is cool, shadows tall along the walls, birds not yet too loud, neighbors' windows only beginning to open. The rope goes down, the bucket fills, and with each soft creak of the handle, the house's water clock starts ticking. You can almost imagine the home thinking, "Ah, here is the day's first drink." Different water for different jobs. Not all water in the house is the same. People often quietly sorted their water without thinking too much about it. Fresh, cool water for drinking and cooking, poured into clean jars and lidded vessels. Everyday water for washing hands, faces, and dishes. Heavier use water for laundry, scrubbing floors, or rinsing tools. Sometimes the very same bucket was portioned out. First, a jug for cooking, then a jar for drinking, then what remained for washing. Containers helped the house remember its priorities. A tall jar in the corner near the kitchen might be reserved for drinking, with a ladle hanging beside it. A wide basin near the door might be for rinsing feet and hands. A bigger tub, stored until needed, might wait for laundry days. Water moves, but containers give it roles. Buckets and balance, carrying without splashing. Carrying water from well to room is a small art. A full bucket is heavy, and it has its own ideas. If you walk stiffly, it will splash and slosh and tug. If you walk smoothly, it will calm down and follow. So people learned a kind of carrying posture, arm relaxed, elbow slightly bent, wrist allowed to move, steps steady and soft. Sometimes they used yokes across the shoulders with 2 equal buckets, handles that spread the load for the hand, or simply 2 buckets carried one in each hand to balance the body. A balanced carrier makes quieter water. Quieter water means less spilled effort. In a sense, water teaches you to walk kindly. Clay jars, cool, dark resting places. Once inside, water often moved into clay jars or ceramic crocks. Clay is a patient material. It keeps water cool, it shields from light, it smells faintly of earth, it sweats a little on hot days, helping the contents stay pleasant. Jars might stand near the kitchen hearth, but not too close to heat, in a shaded corner, along a cool inner wall, in a small storage room that stays dim all day. Each jar had a quiet etiquette. Dip with a clean ladle, cover when not in use, don't put hands directly into the water, don't mix clean drinking jars with washing jars. Without written labels, everyone still knew which jar was which. Habit does the labeling. Ladles, cups, and small sips. The final stage of water's journey is the smallest, from jar to mouth. Ladles and cups might be carved wood darkened with use, simple fired clay with a chipped lip, dipped gourd halves, metal cups in later times. They hang on pegs or sit upside down on a cloth. After use, they're rinsed and left to dry. A favorite cup can become as personal as a pillow. There is an everyday tenderness in this scene. Someone yawning, someone ladling water, someone lifting that first drink of the day. Cold against the lips, cool down the throat, a small shiver of waking. Nothing dramatic, but the whole day feels different when the first drink is unhurried. Washing bowls, quiet edges of cleanliness. Not all water goes into people, some goes over them. Beside doorways there might be a bowl or basin for washing hands before meals, for rinsing dust from feet, for splashing face and neck in heat. These miniature rituals create micro-routines. Arrive from outside, set down your bundle, pour a little water, wash slowly, dry with a cloth hung nearby. In climates with dust or heat, these small washings are as refreshing as drinking and just as calming for the nervous system. The water in these basins may then continue its journey. Used water poured into the garden, onto trees, or into a place where soil can drink it up. Even used water isn't useless, it just moves to a different part of the house's ecosystem. Night containers, water that stays close. At night, people often didn't want to walk all the way to the well or kitchen jar, so smaller vessels appeared. A pitcher in the sleeping room, a cup on a small stool, a covered bowl within easy reach of a sick person. This little reserve is a quiet safety net. It means a thirsty child doesn't have to cross a dark courtyard alone. Someone ill or nursing can drink without effort. The household can let the courtyard sleep. The well is in the heart, but these small night vessels are like satellites, little moons reflecting its comfort into every room. The sound of water moving through the house. If you listened through a whole day, you'd hear water's journey as a soft soundtrack. Morning, the creak of the well handle, the splash into jars, the pour into cooking pots. Midday, the trickle into basins, the swish of washing, the drip onto garden soil. Evening, the clink of ladles, the last glug into a night jug, the quiet slosh as someone carries a final bucket. These sounds are small but repeated. They tell you things are normal, nothing's failing. Today is much like yesterday. Tomorrow will probably be the same. That sameness is one of the most sleep-friendly feelings a human can have. A sleepy ending scene. Now picture yourself inside such a house. Outside, the sky is deepening. The courtyard well rests in the dim light, cover on, rope hanging still. Inside, in a cool corner, a tall clay jar is almost full. A wooden ladle rests on a hook. Someone takes the ladle, dips once, and pours water into a cup. The sound is soft, like a hush. They take a slow drink, then fill a small night jug, just enough for thirst that might awaken later. They set the jug beside a bed, on a low stool. A cloth hangs nearby. Nothing more is needed. The well is in the yard. The jar is in the room. The water is here already. There is no urgent errand left to run, no dry throat that must brave the night air. The house has done its small preparations. The route of water is complete for today. You can borrow that feeling now. Let your worries be like empty buckets, already filled and set aside. Let your thoughts be like jars in the corner, still, cool, waiting. Let your breath move quietly, the way water moves from well to cup. Nothing missing, nothing rushing, just the quiet route of water through a peaceful house, and your own body ready to rest.
Not every relationship with a courtyard well is about the bucket in your hand. Some part of it is about depth you can't see. The house doesn't only want to know, is there water right now, this minute? It also quietly wonders, especially in dry seasons, is there enough? Will it last? How far down is it today? Tonight we'll sit with that quiet question, not in panic, but in the slow, observant way old households measured their wells. We'll watch ropes, marks on stone, knots, shadows, and simple tests that helped people feel a little less afraid of tomorrow. And we'll let that idea turn into a soft kind of reassurance for your own tired mind. The first measure, a bucket and a guess. At the simplest level, people knew the well's mood just by how long it took for the bucket to arrive at the water. When someone turned the handle or lowered the rope by hand, they felt how many turns it took, how long before the rope went slack, how the sound changed as the bucket neared the surface. After years of living with a well, that timing becomes instinct. On a good day, the bucket meets water sooner than you fear. The rope feels comfortably short. The pull back up is familiar. On a worrying day, your arm moves longer in silence. The rope keeps paying out. You feel the faint unease of, did we always lower it this far? Even without numbers, the body remembers. Knots in the rope, a simple depth language. People who drew water daily often tied knots into the rope to mark depth. Not elaborate, just little signposts. One knot at normal water level, another knot when things get low, sometimes more for different seasons. As the rope slid through their hand, they could feel
hears the normal knot. Oh, it's farther down than usual. Or the low water knot is already near the curb. Time to pay attention. These knots turned the rope into a story you could read with your fingers, even in the dark. You didn't need to peer down into the shaft every time. The rope told you enough. Scratches and stains on stone. Over years, water leaves marks, a dark band on the inner wall where it usually rests, lighter stone above, maybe a faint greenish tinge where moisture clings. On particularly careful days, someone might lean over a little, safely, hold a lantern or mirror to catch light, look for that familiar ring. If the ring sat much lower than usual, they'd remember. Sometimes they'd even scratch a small mark on the outer curb or a nearby stone to say, this was the low point in that dry year. Later, when another dry season came, they could compare. Is it lower than that bad year? The same? Still above? The wall of the well becomes a quiet memory keeper, a record of how the ground beneath the house has behaved over time. Sound as a measuring stick. You can measure a well by sound, too. When the bucket or a small stone touches the surface, the echo returns differently depending on depth. A quick, sharp splash when the water is high, a longer pause and a deeper sound when the water sits far below. Some people dropped a small pebble now and then, not into the water constantly, but as a test in troubled seasons. They'd listen, 1 heartbeat, 2, plop. The space between hand and sound becomes a rough ruler of the well's mood. It's all very human science, no instruments, just ears and familiarity. Dry seasons, quiet adjustments, not panic. In long dry periods, wells became a shared concern. But most households didn't run around shouting, "We'll run out." The well encouraged a slower, more disciplined response. A little less water used for washing. Clothes beaten or brushed more before they're fully soaked. Vegetables scrubbed over a basin, then that water given to plants. Fewer idle bucketfuls poured over hot stones simply to watch them steam. People might draw water a bit earlier in the day while there was less demand. They might combine trips, carrying 2 tasks worth in one go. The feeling is not luxury, but it isn't disaster either. It's carefulness, honoring the fact that the cool, dark water is not forever guaranteed. The well quietly teaches enough is not infinite. Sharing news. How's your well? In dry times, conversations between households often included one small question: how is your well? Answers might be, still good, same as last year's dry spell. Lower than my father remembers. We're watching the second knot now. Ours is shallow, we're drawing from the neighbors too. This news isn't gossip, it's safety. It helps everyone guess what's happening underground. Is the water table falling for everyone or just here? Are some wells at risk sooner? Should people start planning for hauling water from farther away? The courtyard well might be private space, but water reality is shared reality. Knowing others are watching their depth too brings a strange comfort. You're not alone in checking the rope. The endless peace of enough for today. In the end, most well-keeping families lived not by exact numbers, but by a simple check. Is there enough for today? If the bucket still comes up full, the rope knots tell you the level isn't dangerously low, the taste and clarity are still good, then the household can relax for now. They don't ignore the future. They might plan, use a bit less tomorrow, repair a jar to waste less, clear the well area for easier refilling. But they also let themselves stop fretting once the day's supply is secure. That small decision to say enough for today and then rest is one of the most sleep-making habits a person can learn. Drought memories and quiet resilience.
Old wells carried stories of worse times, the year when the rope seemed endless before water came, the summer when families took turns drawing so the well could rest, the season when rain finally returned and people watched the level creep slowly back up, knot by knot. Those memories shape how people feel in later, smaller, dry spells. They think, we've seen this before, we changed our habits and came through. Our grandparents managed with less. The well has been low and risen again. So even when they check rope knots with a hint of worry, there's an undercurrent of resilience. The depth may change, but the relationship with it is long. Wells are not new experiments. They are old companions. A sleep lesson. Measuring your own enough. Now turn the depth story inward. Your mind may often demand guarantees. Will I have enough energy next week? Enough courage for that decision? Enough time for all my plans? But tonight, you're more like a courtyard well at dusk. You don't need to know the entire year's forecast. You only need to know, is there enough for today? You can check gently. Did I get through the day? Did I do what truly needed to be done? Do I have enough breath and strength left to reach the bed, drink a little water, and rest? If the answer is yes, even a small yes, that's your rope knot saying, for now, it's enough. You can let long-term worry sink back into the dark, like the deeper stones of the well. You can trust that you'll measure again tomorrow with fresher eyes. Tonight, you only need one measure. I reached the water. I have enough to sleep. A sleepy ending scene. Imagine the courtyard in the early evening, just before lanterns are lit. The air is cooler now. The worst of the day's heat is gone. Someone stands by the well with one hand on the rope. They lower the bucket, feeling each knot slip past their fingers. First knot, usual depth. Second knot, it's a little low this season, but not frightening. There's a pause, then the faint, satisfying sound of bucket meeting water. They wait a heartbeat, then two, then pull it up slowly. The bucket rises, dripping coolness back into the shaft. When it reaches the curb, the water is clear and deep-looking in the fading light. They smile in that small, private way and think, enough for tonight, enough for tomorrow's morning, too. They fill the jars they need to fill, they close the cover, they coil the rope neatly, then they go inside where cups and jugs are already waiting. The well stays outside in the dark, holding what it holds. The house settles knowing that below the courtyard a quiet depth remains. You can borrow that feeling now. Imagine a rope running down through your thoughts, past surface noise and worries, to a deeper place where there is still calm. Feel your knots, today's little checks, slide past your awareness. You reached the water. You did enough. You are allowed to rest.
Segment 6. Children, Play, and the Invisible Line Around the Well. Courtyard wells and thirst calm. A courtyard well is a calm thing. Children are not. They run, chase, trip, argue, sing, invent games out of nothing, and forget rules as fast as you can say them. And yet, in many houses, children grew up within arm's reach of deep water and heavy buckets, without constant disaster. That didn't happen by luck. Tonight, we'll stay in the courtyard, but we'll look not at the well itself, we'll look at the invisible line around it, the safety habits, stories, and gentle rules that taught small, restless feet how close to come and when to stop. The well as a forbidden toy. To a child, a courtyard well must look tempting. A round stone ring at just the right height to lean on, a rope that moves when you pull it, a handle that turns and makes creaks, buckets that splash and swing.
It has all the parts of a great game. But in most homes, the well became the one thing you don't play with. That idea was built slowly through words, stories, examples, and consistent reactions. When a toddler tottered too close, adults didn't smile and take a picture. They moved quickly, scooped them away, and said some version of, "No, not here." Not in anger, in seriousness. Over years, that seriousness settled into the stones themselves. Children might chase a chicken blindly, stop just short of the curb, and veer away almost without thinking. The invisible line does its quiet work. Simple barriers that say, "Not for you." Many wells had small physical reminders of that line. A lid that stayed closed except when an adult was drawing water. A low fence or railing segment on one side. A bench placed so you couldn't run straight at the well. Storage jars or wood piles arranged to guide movement around, not through, the well zone. None of this turned the well into a locked vault. Adults still needed easy access. But a child's path might be broken up by objects that invite slower steps, corners they must turn, things they can't easily climb. So even in a small courtyard, the routes of play are gently bent away from the well over and over. Don't lean in, teaching distance as a habit. Leaning over a deep shaft is dangerous for adults too, but children are especially drawn to peering into darkness. So one of the quiet rules became, look from here, not from there. Touch the curb with a hand, not with your whole body. If you want to see the water, wait for someone taller to hold you safely. An adult might lift a child up, arms locked firmly around their middle. Let them look once into the cool dark, pull them back and set them away from the edge. That gives the child just enough to satisfy curiosity and at the same time teaches that seeing the water is not something you do alone. The well is allowed to be mysterious. In fact, a little mystery helps safety. Practice jobs, small tasks watched closely. As children grew older, they weren't kept entirely away. They were given practice jobs near the well, tiny responsibilities that eased them into safe habits. For a young child, jobs might be bringing an empty jar to the curb and waiting, carrying a small full cup from well bucket to house jar under supervision, fetching the ladle from its peg and putting it back. For an older child, turning the handle while an adult guides the bucket, holding the rope steady but not leaning over, helping to place the cover when drawing is done. Each task is a chance to repeat rules. Feet stay here, hands stay here, no leaning, no running with water. The courtyard well becomes a training ground for care. Stories as safety nets. Not every rule is obeyed because of logic. Some are obeyed because of stories. Families might tell cautionary tales of someone who fell into a well long ago and was hurt. Stories of a well spirit who dislikes shouting and rough play near the curb. Simple sayings like, "The well is older than you, respect it." Or little myths like, "If you kick the curb, the water goes away." Whether parents believed these stories literally was less important than their effect. They wrapped safety in memory. A child may not remember why running on slick stone is dangerous, but they remember, we don't make the well angry. This mixture of respect and mild awe keeps a calm bubble around the opening. The sound of adult footsteps. Children also learn from sound. In some homes, the sound of an adult approaching the well is different from their usual steps, slower, more deliberate, without the rhythm of play, often accompanied by the clink of bucket handle or the drag of rope. Over time, children begin to associate that sound with seriousness. When they hear it, they pause their game for a moment, glance over, and often give the well space. It's as if the whole courtyard holds its breath for a few seconds. Bucket down,
bucket up, water poured, cover replaced. Then play resumes. Not when you're angry, not when you're silly. Another quiet rule is emotional, not physical. Don't draw water while angry and stomping. Don't approach the well while laughing so hard you can't see. Don't run at the well to show off. Adults might tell older children, go calm down first, then we fetch water. It's a way of linking emotional steadiness to safety. The staircase to the well is mental as well as physical. This rule is not written on the wall, but it lives in the timing. A child scolded for carelessness is sent to sit in the shade before being allowed to help again. A silly mood is gently redirected away from the curb, towards games in a safer corner. The well quietly requires a certain kind of mood, grounded, focused, present. Games that go around, not over. Children will always invent games in the courtyard, but the space shapes the rules. You might see rope skipping near the far wall, stones arranged in lines for hopping games away from the center, chasing that loops around the well but rarely cuts close to the curb, chalk or charcoal marks drawn in a wide arc, an unspoken boundary. Sometimes a game rule is literally, don't step in the well circle, or this ring is lava, or crossing this line means you're out. They turn safety into a game mechanic. The well is either a forbidden zone or a base no one can enter, protected by pretend magic. Whatever the story, the result is the same. Small feet don't pound too close to deep water. The occasional scare and the quiet lesson afterwards. Despite all these habits, small scares still happen. A child might trip and catch themselves on the curb, knock an empty bucket loudly against the stone, slip a little on wet ground near the well. After the sharp intake of breath, after the quick rush of adult hands, there is often a soft moment, a hug, a stern but gentle word, maybe a hand placed on the child's chest so they feel their own racing heart. Then usually comes a reminder. This is why we don't run here. This is why we keep the lid on. This is why you must listen. Fear is not left raw. It is turned into understanding. The scare becomes part of the invisible fence that will keep that child, and maybe others, safer next time. A sleep lesson, your own inner well boundary. There's a quiet metaphor hidden in all this. The courtyard well is like the deepest, quietest part of your mind, the place that holds your strength, your clarity, your calm. But around that depth, you need boundaries, times of day when you don't play too close to your limits, moods in which you don't approach certain thoughts, invisible lines you don't cross when you're tired, angry, or silly. You can ask yourself, what are my no running by the well rules? Maybe it's no heavy decisions late at night, no checking stressful messages in bed, no replaying arguments when you're already exhausted, no piling more on your mind when it's clearly full. These are your well manners for the soul. They don't restrict your life, they protect your depth.
When the courtyard goes dark and the well cover settles, the story of water doesn't stop. It moves indoors. It gathers around the quietest places, beds, cradles, mats on the floor, corners where someone is ill, places where a child might wake up in the dark thirsty or afraid. Tonight, we'll stay inside the house and follow night water, the jugs and cups that live beside sleeping people, the way households prepared for thirst and sickness after sundown, and how a courtyard well turned into a comforting idea even when nobody wanted to step outside. Evening rounds, filling the night jugs. As daylight fades, someone often does a last small tour of the house, a kind of closing ritual. Part of that ritual is water. They might top up the tall jar in the main room, fill a smaller night jug for the sleeping area.
Pour water into a cup for an elder who doesn't like to get up. Leave a little near a child's bed in case of midnight thirst. It's not a dramatic chore. It takes only a few minutes. Dip ladle into the cool clay jar. Pour into a smaller vessel. Set it on a stool or low shelf. Maybe cover it with a cloth to keep dust and insects away. But this tiny act changes the whole feeling of night. Instead of thinking, if I get thirsty, I'll have to cross the cold yard, everyone knows, if I wake, water is already here. That's a quiet, powerful kind of security. The bedside jug and cup. By many beds, you can imagine a simple arrangement. A jug or pitcher, not too large, filled part way. A cup or small bowl turned upside down on top as a lid. Perhaps a cloth folded underneath to catch drips. All placed where a half-asleep hand can find it easily. In the night, someone wakes. They don't need to dress. They don't need to light a lantern or call out. They reach, lift the cup, pour, drink, set it back, and sink down again. Half the time, their eyes barely open. The water might be a little less cold than it was in the evening, but the body doesn't care. At that hour, what matters is not the exact temperature. It's not having to leave the warm nest. Sick rooms, bowls, cloths, and whisper-level care. When someone is sick, night water becomes even more important. The sick room, whether it's a separate little space or just a corner of the main room, usually has a bowl of water within reach, a cup or spoon for slow sips, a cloth for cooling forehead and neck, maybe a second bowl for washing or rinsing. In the dim quiet, you might see someone dipping a cloth, gently wringing it, laying it across a hot brow. Slow sips given between fevered breaths. Hands washed quietly so the sick person isn't disturbed by the rustle of buckets or the slap of heavy water. Sometimes the water for the sick room is drawn fresh in the evening, just for them. A small, clean jar reserved from the day, brought carefully into the room and placed where no one will knock it over in the dark. The courtyard well is not near the bed now, but its calm is. The sick room water is its nighttime echo. Night thirst for children, the just-in-case cup. Children are the first to wake thirsty. They might whisper, tug at a parent, sit up disoriented, feel their throat dry from crying or fever or just deep sleep. Night water routines grew around this reality. A family that had once stumbled through darkness and cold to reach the courtyard might eventually say, "Next time, we keep water here." So a child's bed might have a cup set inside a small dish, a little jug on a shelf just above their reach, but within a parent's arm. A rule that the last thing before lights out is one sip and then the jug stays here. The idea is simple. The child learns that water is not far away. That knowledge alone can soothe fear, even if they don't wake to use it. Not waking the whole house. The more prepared the night water is, the fewer people need to wake. If every thirst meant lighting a lamp, crossing creaking floors, opening the courtyard door, lifting the well cover, using the rope and handle, then the whole house might rise, babies, elders, animals. Instead, by keeping small amounts of water close, one person's need stays small. A sip can be taken almost silently. A cloth can be dampened from the bowl in the same room. Doors don't have to open. The courtyard can remain asleep. Night water is a way of saying, we planned for this. Nobody has to panic. The secret link back to the well. Even when nobody goes outside, the courtyard well still matters. People trust the night jugs and bowls because they trust the source. They know the water was drawn clear and cool earlier that day. The jars were filled under watchful eyes. The well itself is protected and cared for.
so the indoor water feels like a thread tied back to the dark, quiet stone ring outside. You could think of it like a long, invisible rope, one end deep underground in the aquifer, one end at the bedside cup. Between them sits the well, the bucket, the jar, the ladle, and finally the jug. It's all one calm system. Emptying and refreshing in the morning. When morning comes, night water doesn't stay where it is forever. Someone wakes and empties what remains in the bedside cups into a basin or onto plants, rinses the jugs, sets them aside for refilling with fresh, cool water from the well. This little cycle, fill in the evening, use in the night, empty and refresh in the morning, prevents water from turning stale in forgotten cups. It also keeps containers clean and the habit alive. The nightly presence of water is not an accident, it's maintained. A sleep lesson, preparing for the you that wakes in the dark. All of this has a gentle message. Houses prepared for future, half-awake versions of themselves. They quietly asked, what will we need if someone wakes up scared? What will we need if someone is ill later? What small comfort can we place within reach now before we're too tired to think clearly? You can do the same for your own mind and body. Before sleep, place a glass of water near your bed, dim the lights, lay out what you'll need for morning, write down a worry on a piece of paper so you don't have to hold it all night. This is your night jug for the mind, preparation that lets the future sleepy you relax.
At night, the courtyard well is a promise. In the morning, it's a routine. But at midday, when the heat folds itself over the house, the well becomes something else, a cool center. Tonight, we'll sit with that hot, bright part of the day, not by standing in the glare, but by resting in the shade around the stone. We'll feel how the well and its courtyard helped people survive heat slowly, with shade, timing, calm movements, and small tricks that turned fierce noon into something bearable. The Courtyard Sky Bowl. A courtyard is like an open box with the lid removed, walls on all sides, sky at the top. When the sun is low, at morning and evening, the walls make long shadows. At noon, the sun peers almost straight down into the box, and heat pools on the stone and hard-packed earth. But the well has one advantage. It reaches downward into ground that hasn't seen the sun in thousands of days. So even when the air is hot, the well water is cool. That contrast, hot air, cool water, shapes everything about midday life. Timing the chores, morning, not noon. Most households quietly learn to do heavy water tasks before the worst heat. Laundry buckets filled in the early hours, cooking water drawn before fires made the kitchen hotter, drinking jars topped up just after sunrise. By late morning, people tried to reduce how often they walked to the well. The house would have a big jar for kitchen use, another in a cool room for drinking, basins already partly filled for washing. It doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes you still run out. But the goal is simple: less walking back and forth when the stones are hot enough to sting bare feet. The well is still there at noon. It's just visited less and visited with more care. The shade around the curb. Even at midday, shade doesn't disappear. It just crawls to the edges. The base of a wall holds a thin band of shadow. A fig tree or vine might cast dappled shade on one side. A cloth awning, if the family has one, stretches and flaps gently, making a patch of softness. Often, the area right around the well gets some shade because of an overhead beam used for the pulley, a frame that also supports a small canopy, a nearby tree or balcony edge. The well curb can be warm to the touch, but the air right above the opening feels cooler,
like faint breath rising from the earth. People might rest a hand there for a moment, half on the warm stone, half over the cool shaft, and feel both worlds at once. Cool cloths and small reliefs. In the hottest part of the day, people don't bathe in the well. The water is too precious, the shaft too deep, but they use small amounts for comfort. You might see a cloth dipped quickly, wrung out and laid on the back of a neck, a wet scarf tied loosely around wrists or forehead, a quick splash on hands and forearms before going back to work, a cup of water held against closed eyelids for a moment. No big pouring, no waste, just touches of coolness. Sometimes a bowl of water sits in a shaded corner with a cloth draped over it. Evaporation and breeze make a little local coolness. A jug wrapped in a damp cloth may stay cooler through the afternoon, sweating lightly as water inside remains drinkable and pleasant. The house learns, small cool things, used wisely, are enough to get through the worst of heat. The stillness of noon. Heat makes people move differently. In the middle of the day, footsteps slow, voices drop, doors open less often, work shifts to shade and indoor tasks. Even the well routine quiets down. Morning had clatter, evening will have chatter, noon has a kind of pause. You might hear a bucket once, then nothing for a long time. The faint echo from the shaft as water's surface is disturbed, then silence again, aside from distant insects and muffled street sounds beyond the courtyard walls. The well becomes a kind of anchor in that stillness, solid, central, unchanged, while the air shimmers. Animals and the well corner. If animals live in or near the courtyard, birds in a coop, a goat, a dog, they also feel the heat. People often keep a water bowl or trough not too far from the well, often in the shadiest corner, filled in the morning, topped up quickly if needed, moved a little as the shade shifts over the day. You might see a dog asleep on the cooler patch of earth, chest rising slowly, paws twitching in dreams. A cat might stretch out longer in a narrow strip of shadow. The well's water isn't just for people. It rose through the whole little ecosystem of the yard. The sound of distant water in a dry day. In very hot weather, surface water may vanish from the landscape. Streams shrink, dust rises where puddles used to collect. But inside the well shaft, people still see the dark ring of damp stone, the glimmer of light on the water far below, the familiar splash when the bucket arrives. It's proof that somewhere below the dryness, the ground still remembers coolness. This knowledge quietly calms fear. Even if the day is oppressive, air thick, sun sharp, knowing that the well is not empty changes how the household feels. They may worry about many things, but thirst is not the loudest of them. Midday rules: slower, softer, less. Because of heat, houses create a kind of midday etiquette around the well. Don't play wildly near it now. No heavy laundry at noon. Step lightly, the stone is hot. Draw what is needed, then let the well rest. Go back to the shade. Children learn to respect this. They might be allowed to help in early morning or late afternoon, but at noon, adults take over. Fewer trips, fewer risks. It's not a strict law, just a pattern. This is the quiet hour. A sleep lesson, carrying coolness into the hottest thoughts. All of this has a soft echo for your mind. Hot midday in a courtyard is like a busy, overheated day in your head. Too many thoughts, bright worries, heavy noise. The well is the cool center, the breath, the calm, the deeper self that doesn't match the weather. Just as people learn to move slower in heat, use small amounts of cool water,
Seek shade and trust the well's depth. You can learn to slow thoughts, take tiny cooling sips of rest, step into mental shade, and trust that calm still exists below today's heat. You don't have to empty the whole well for relief. One calm breath is like one cool cloth, enough to soften the worst of the glare. A sleepy ending scene. Now bring the picture into focus. It's midday in the courtyard. Light is bright and almost white overhead. The walls hold heat, but there is a folded patch of shade near the well. Someone steps into that shade with quiet feet. Their face is flushed from kitchen work or tasks in the sun. They lower the bucket, turn the handle slowly, and draw up just enough water to fill a small bowl. They dip a cloth, wring it out, and press it to the back of their neck, then to their forehead. They drink a small cup. No rush, no big gulp, just a slow, grateful sip. The rope creaks once more as the bucket goes down for a short draw. Then the cover is set back. The courtyard falls still again. Heat presses against the walls, but inside this small shaded corner there is coolness, patience, and a sense that the day can be endured. You can borrow that now. Whatever felt like noon in your thoughts today, the harshest part, the busiest heat, you are past it. This is your shade corner. Your well is still there. You don't need to solve the heat. Just need one cool breath, then another, a small sip of rest. Then, like the courtyard settling at midday, your mind can quiet down, and the deep, cool part of you can rise slowly to the surface as you drift toward sleep. Trimmed or replaced rope when it became too rough or frayed. Sometimes wiped the rope or chain near the top when it seemed grimy. A worn rope is not just a safety hazard above, it's a potential contamination path into the water below. Even without formal rules, everyday habits reduce that risk. Handle the rope with clean hands when you can, keep it from lying in dirty puddles, and listen for signs of rot or rust. The well's space. Quiet order around the curb. If you look closely at a cared-for courtyard well, the space around it often feels tidier than other corners. You might see a swept patch of earth or stone, a few tools hung on a nearby wall.
A courtyard well doesn't stay calm by itself. Water can be cool and clear one season and cloudy or risky the next if people become careless. Dust falls, insects arrive, leaves blow in, buckets get dirty, soap, scraps, and food waste drift too close. So households quietly invented something we might call well manners, a set of habits, small rules, and bits of low-tech design that protected the water they depended on every day. Tonight, we'll sit beside that well again, but instead of watching the rope and bucket rise and fall, we'll look at covers, curbs, ropes, hands, and all the tiny ways people kept the water good. The curb and the edge, keeping ground out of the well. The first line of defense is simple stone. The well curb, the low wall around the opening, is more than something to lean on. It's a barrier. Without a curb, loose earth could crumble inward. Children could wander too close. Buckets might bump directly against soil and bring bits of it down. Rain could wash dust and dirt straight into the shaft. So people built the curb, high enough that you don't step over it absent-mindedly, low enough to sit on or lean against comfortably, smooth on top so ropes and buckets glide instead of scrape. Over time, hands and buckets polish that edge. It becomes shiny, rounded, and familiar. That smoothness reduces chipping and keeps loose stone from falling into the water. In some yards, the area directly around the well might be paved with stone or brick, or hard-packed and swept earth, sometimes even slightly sloped so rainwater flows away, not toward the opening. The message is gentle. Let nothing loose fall in.
The cover, letting the well sleep between drawings. Many courtyard wells had some form of cover for when they weren't in use. It might be a wooden lid in two halves, easy to slide aside, a single round disc with a hole for the rope, a frame with boards that can be lifted, or even a woven mat or thick cloth in simpler settings. The cover keeps out leaves, insects, stray feathers or bits of trash, falling dust, curious animals' paws and noses. It also reduces evaporation and helps keep sunlight off the water surface, which makes the shaft feel cooler, darker, and more protected. The cover becomes part of the drawing ritual. Slide it back or lift it, lower the bucket, raise the bucket, close the well again. Just as you close a door to keep a room safe, you close the well to keep the water calm. Buckets and inside buckets, a quiet separation. Another bit of well manners is about which bucket goes where. Often there is a difference between the well bucket, the one that actually goes down into the shaft, and the house buckets, those that never touch the inside of the well. The well bucket usually stays near the curb, is kept reasonably clean, might be rinsed occasionally with well water, isn't used for laundry, scraps, or dirty tasks. The house buckets receive water from the well bucket, travel through the house, might get used for washing, cleaning, or even carrying other liquids, are cleaned or swapped out more often. This separation keeps heavily used, potentially dirty vessels away from the deep water. The well water touches only its dedicated bucket, and the household can control what that bucket touches in turn. It's a simple rule. What goes into the well should be as clean as possible. Hands, lids, and ladles. Small hygiene without the word. People long before modern microbiology still observed cause and effect. They might not have said bacteria, but they saw that muddy hands clouded water. Dipping fingers into jars changes taste and smell. Crumbs and scraps led to bad water days. So quiet customs grew. Use a ladle to take water from a jar, not your hands. Keep jar mouths covered with cloth or a lid to keep out dust and insects. Don't wash greasy pots directly beside the well curb, where splashes might run inward. Don't drop scraps or peelings near the well's drainage paths. Sometimes these habits were wrapped in small warnings. Don't anger the well. Don't make the well sick. Treat the water kindly, and it will treat you kindly. These phrases encoded practical sanitation in everyday language. Soap and the no-soap zone. Soap is useful, but not in the well. Courtyards sometimes developed an invisible no-soap zone around the well. People might wash hands or faces near it, but soapy laundry or heavy scrubbing was done farther away, where rinse water flows away from the shaft. In some homes, laundry tubs sat in another corner of the yard. Greasy dishwater was carried to a separate dumping spot. Floors were scrubbed with water taken from buckets, then wrung out somewhere else. The well area was treated almost like a quiet shrine to cleanliness, not religiously, but practically. Water coming out should be as pure as possible. Water going back into the ground should not plunge straight into the source. You can imagine a mother or elder saying to a child, soap water over there, drinking water over here. Ropes, chains, and quiet wear. The rope or chain is another subtle risk. If a rope is left to drag along dusty ground, pick up grit, or soak in dirty water, whatever clings to it can drift back into the well with each drawing. So, people often kept the lower part of the rope inside the shaft when not in use, avoided letting the bucket thump muddy ground repeatedly, trimmed or replaced rope when it became too rough or frayed, sometimes wiped the rope or chain near the top when it seemed grimy. A worn rope is not just a safety hazard above, it's a potential contamination path into the water below. Even without formal rules, everyday habits reduce that risk. Handle the rope with clean hands when you can. Keep it from lying in dirty puddles and listen for signs of rot or rust. The well space, quiet order around the curb. If you look closely at a cared-for courtyard well, the space around it often feels tidier than other corners. You might see a swept patch of earth or stone, a few tools hung near a wall, a small shelf or ledge for cups and ladles, a place for lids to rest when open, high enough to stay clean. People instinctively avoid piling random things on the well curb. No muddy boots, no wood scraps, no laundry baskets. Even when life is messy elsewhere, stacks of firewood, baskets of vegetables, tools and cloth, the ring around the well tends to remain a quiet zone. This subtle order reassures the mind. If the well is orderly, the water is probably okay. Checking the water, sight, smell, and simple tests. Without lab equipment, people still checked their wells. They used sight. Is the water clear when lifted in a bucket or jar? Any strange color or floating debris? Smell. Does it smell neutral, cool, and earthy, or does it have a sour, stagnant, or sharp odor? Taste. A small sip tells a lot. Too mineral, too muddy, slightly off? They also watched for unusual illness in the household that follows changes in water, strange growths on the inner walls of the well, sudden cloudiness after heavy rains. In some places, they might let the first bucket after a storm go to washing or cleaning, not drinking, almost like flushing the system. It's cautious but not fearful, just attentive. Cleaning the well, rare, serious, and slow. Sometimes wells had to be cleaned. It might happen after something fell in, after a long period of neglect, after floods muddied the whole groundwater system, or when the smell and taste told everyone something is wrong. Cleaning a well is not a casual task. It often meant lowering a person or worker down with a rope or ladder, scraping mud and sediment from the bottom, removing debris or foreign objects, lifting out buckets of silt until the water ran clearer. The courtyard might become unusually busy on such days. People watched, offered help, passed tools, and looked a little anxious. When the cleaning was done and the water cleared again, the relief felt almost like the house itself exhaled. A sleep lesson. Protect the clear water inside you. There's a quiet metaphor here for your own mind. The courtyard well is like the deep, calm part of you, the place where clarity lives. If you let every scrap, argument, fear, and leftover worry fall straight into it, the water clouds. So you create small mind manners. Don't bring every stressful thought right to bed. Don't pour harsh content into your head at night. Set boundaries. Work over there, sleep over here. Keep a little clear center where you draw calm from. Covers, curbs, tidy edges, these are mental too. You can decide, this hour is my well. No soap water, no trash, only quiet. A sleepy ending scene. Now imagine our courtyard again, late at night. The well curb is pale in the starlight. The cover is on. The rope is still. The area around it.
A courtyard well is often drawn as if it belongs to one family, one house, one neat rectangle of walls. But water doesn't care about walls, and thirst doesn't either. In many places, wells became soft borders, owned on paper by one household or clan, but in practice woven into the life of neighbors, shared in drought, visited in passing, trusted as a place where you could ask for more than just a bucket of water. Tonight we'll sit at that edge, not quite inside one home, not quite in the street, and listen to the quiet social life around the well. Greetings, trades, gossip, kindness, and the comfort of knowing you're not alone in trying to stay watered. Wells that belong to us more than me. Some courtyard wells were strictly private, locked behind doors, used only by the family inside, but many others lived in more open spaces, a shared courtyard with several small homes opening onto it, a cluster of related families, each with a door facing the same well, or a semi-public corner where the line between house and neighborhood blurred. On paper, someone paid for the stones and the digging. In practice, when a neighbor asked, "May I draw a bucket?" the answer most of the time was, "Of course," because saying no to thirst is a hard thing for most humans. So the well became a social center as much as a physical one. Morning encounters, buckets, and good words. The busiest time around a shared well is often morning. Several households might arrive with jars and buckets, stand in a loose, unspoken line, wait their turn while chatting softly. You'd hear, "Did you sleep? How's your mother's cough? Any news from the market? Is your well holding steady this year?" The clink of buckets and the creak of ropes mix with hushed laughter, small complaints, exchanges of advice, how to stretch grain, how to soothe a fever, when the next rain might come. These are not dramatic conversations, they're maintenance for the heart, the way repair days are maintenance for the stones. Drawing water becomes an excuse to check that everyone else is still managing. Lending buckets and carrying for others. Not every household has the same strength. Some people are old or frail, are heavily pregnant, have injuries, or are simply overwhelmed with small children. So wells naturally invite small acts. "I'll carry your bucket up the steps. Leave your jars here, I'm drawing anyway. Your rope looks worn. Take a turn with ours until you fix it. We have more than enough this morning. Fill yours from ours." A neighbor might draw 2 buckets instead of one for their own household, one for someone who can't come just now. Drop off a full jar quietly by someone's door, tapping once before leaving. These are tiny, everyday kindnesses, not grand gifts, but they stick in memory, the way the sound of the well handle sticks in the courtyard. In between news, the well as a soft notice board. Before written posters and phone messages, the well itself could serve as a notice board, not with paper, but with presence and absence. You might learn, someone is ill because they haven't appeared for several mornings. Someone's guest has arrived when you see an unfamiliar face drawing water. Someone is away on a trip because another family member suddenly takes on the fetching duties. In some communities, if you needed help or wanted to spread a word, you could wait near the well at busy times, tell 1 or 2 people, and let the news ripple outward as buckets passed from hand to hand. "Her well is almost dry this week. His leg is hurt. His sons are doing all the drawing. They're celebrating a wedding. There will be many guests and much cooking." The well becomes an unofficial bulletin board stitched into a web of slow information. Disputes and the art of keeping water calm. Of course, where people gather, disagreements can appear. Someone cutting the line, someone using more water than feels fair in a dry week, buckets left in the way, lids not replaced after use. But the well has a special status. Too much tension there feels wrong, almost dangerous, like shaking a table with fragile glasses. So communities often developed quiet ways to ease disputes. Elders reminding people of long-standing, first-come, first-served habits. Simple rotational rules during drought. This side of the courtyard draws first on odd days, that side on even days. Gentle corrections. Please close the lid when you're done. Everyone relies on this. An argument might start with sharp voices, but someone will usually say, "Not at the well. Take it elsewhere." Water spaces encourage de-escalation. Everyone has to come back tomorrow. Borrowed wells. Hospitality in dry times. When a neighbor's well turned unreliable, too shallow, too brackish, or contaminated, another household's well might become a temporary lifeline. This hospitality often had its own manners. Borrowers might come at a particular time of day. They might bring their own rope and bucket. They might contribute a little labor or food in thanks.
Sometimes they helped on repair days as repayment. "Your well took care of us this summer," someone might say later, arriving with bread or preserved fruit. "Our turn when yours runs low." These bonds could last generations. Children grew up knowing, "We fetched from their well during the long dry spell when I was small." Wells create threads of memory between families. The shared soundtrack. If several households draw from the same stone ring, the well's sounds belong to everyone. At dawn, the first creaks and splashes might come from an early riser in the corner home. A second set of footsteps follows, then a third. At midday, the sounds quiet, replaced with cooking and work. At evening, the wells host last-minute trips, tired feet, quick greetings before doors close. When you hear the handle turning at a particular hour, you might think, "That's the old neighbor, her timing never changes," or "That must be them, they always draw just after sunset prayers." In this way, each household's rhythm is written in the well's noises. Even behind your own door, you can tell that life is continuing outside. That continuity is like a lullaby for the grown-up nervous system. Wells and guests, offering water before words. In many traditions, offering water is one of the first gestures of hospitality. When a guest arrives, dusty, sweat on their neck, throat dry from travel, you might not start with conversation. You start with, "Sit, drink." You draw water or pour it from a cool jar into a clean cup. The guest's first long swallow smooths the moment. Only then do questions and news begin. In shared well courtyards, this ritual extends to strangers. A passerby might be offered a ladleful of the bucket with a nod. A vendor might be allowed a quick refill before heading on. A messenger might receive water before delivering difficult news. The well is a neutral kindness point, offering relief even when words haven't yet been exchanged. A sleepy lesson. Shared wells, shared emotional thirst. All of this has a very gentle message for your inner life. You too have a well of calm and energy, but you're not meant to supply everything for yourself, alone, forever. Sometimes you borrow calm from someone else's voice. You lean on a friend's steadiness. You share worries at a curb of conversation. You refill from a story, a song, a quiet video, a pet's presence. That isn't weakness. That's being part of a courtyard. Likewise, sometimes you are the well for someone else. A message you send, a listening ear, a small practical favor, a simple, "I'm here." You don't have to be a bottomless source. You just share what you have when you can, and trust that others will share back when you are the one with the empty bucket. A sleepy ending scene. Now imagine a shared courtyard in the cool of early morning. Several doors stand open. Light spills from kitchens. Chickens mutter in a corner. A cat threads its way between buckets. In the center, the old stone well waits. One neighbor stands at the curb, drawing water, her sleeves rolled up. Another arrives with 2 jars and a tired smile. They greet each other softly. "How is your mother today?" "Sleeping better. Thank you for yesterday's water." "Of course. Fill yours for mine I've just drawn." They move around each other with easy choreography, trade places, pass buckets, close the lid, shift jars to the shade. A third neighbor appears, rubbing his eyes, rope in hand. The small circle of people grows, then shrinks as each returns to their door. By the time the sun clears the roof, everyone's jars are full. The courtyard empties. Behind each wall, families begin their separate days, but they carry a little comfort with them. Water is close. Others are nearby. No one is facing thirst alone. You can borrow that feeling now. You don't have to carry every worry with your own strength. Some of your calm can come from outside, from people and rituals and quiet routines. Let yourself feel just for tonight like a house.
Most days, a courtyard well asks almost nothing of you. Lower the bucket, raise the bucket. pour, cover. But every so often, the well asks for more, not in words, but in little signs: a loose stone, a rough edge, a creaking beam, a rope that doesn't feel right in the hand. Those are repair days, slow, deliberate days when the household gives back a little of the care the well has given for years. Not every family loves those days, but everyone understands them. Without repair, the well becomes first inconvenient, then dangerous. Tonight we'll spend one of those days together, quietly tightening the house's throat, stone by stone, rope by rope. When the well says, "Fix me." The well doesn't ring a bell, it speaks in smaller ways. A stone in the curb shifts under a hand. A crack appears in the mortar between lining stones. The wooden beam above creaks sharply instead of softly. The rope shows a new frayed patch where it rubs on an edge. The bucket bangs more noisily against the wall on the way down. For a while, people might watch and wait. Is that new? Has it always sounded like that? Did the stone move more this time? One day, someone finally says, "We should take a look. Not rush, but look." That's the quiet start of a repair day. Not panic, just recognition. Slowing the flow, storing water before repair. Before touching the well itself, households often stocked up. They filled every sound jar and bucket with clean water, set aside extra for cooking, drinking, and washing, maybe filled 1 or 2 large tubs or barrels if repairs might take longer. The idea is simple. While the well's mouth is being worked on, the house should not be thirsty. You can imagine the courtyard lined with filled containers for a moment, clay jars along the wall, wooden buckets near the kitchen door, a tub under a cloth in the shade. It's like taking a deep breath before going underwater. Exposing the throat, removing lids and loose stones. On repair morning, the well looks different. The cover is set aside, any decorations or cloths are moved away. The area around the curb is cleared of jars, stools, and tools. The well stands open and serious. Adults approach with a lantern or mirror to throw light down the shaft, lengths of rope, a basket or bucket for debris, maybe a ladder or a simple rig to lower someone partway inside. The atmosphere is not noisy, it's careful. Children might be kept indoors or at a distance. The usual play is paused. The invisible line around the well becomes official. This space is work today. The lining, resetting stones and sealing cracks. Most courtyard wells have some kind of lining: stone blocks, bricks, packed clay reinforced with rock, or a combination. Over time, mortar crumbles, stones shift, small gaps open. These gaps allow dirt to wash in, roots to creep, or, worst of all, a stone to loosen and fall. So on repair day, someone, steady and trusted, might be lowered down or climb cautiously on supports. They scrape loose debris into a bucket, press stones back into place, add fresh mortar or clay where needed, knock gently to hear which stones sound hollow or unsafe. Above, others haul up filled buckets of grit and mud, tipping them into a separate pile away from the well. It's tiring work, but rhythm helps. Lower bucket, fill, signal, raise, empty. Even the labor has a kind of chant in it. The beam and pulley, quiet engineering overhead. The part you see every day, the beam above, the pulley or spindle, is easy to take for granted until it complains. On repair day, people might check the beam for cracks or rot, listen to how it sounds when tapped, tighten the brackets or replace worn pegs, oil a squeaky axle, replace a warped or worm-eaten crosspiece. Sometimes the whole assembly is removed for a few hours, the rope taken down, the beam lifted off its posts, a new piece shaped or the old one shaved and reinforced.
Seeing the well empty of its familiar wood can feel strange, like seeing someone you know without their usual expression, but it's a sign of care, not loss. When the beam goes back up, it's steadier. The creak becomes lower, less sharp. The handle turns smoother. Drawing water will feel safer for months or years afterwards. Rope and bucket, renewing the everyday contact. Repair days are also a time to really look at the rope and bucket. The rope is run slowly through someone's hands, frayed sections identified and cut out, maybe spliced with fresh rope, or replaced entirely if age shows everywhere. High wear spots, where rope passes over stone or wood, may get wraps of sacrificial binding, strips of cloth, leather, or extra cord. The bucket is checked for cracks or leaks, metal handles tightened, wood staves pressed and reset, clay inspected for hairline fractures. If the bucket has carried thousands of lifts, it may earn a quieter life, moved to garden duty, replaced at the well by a younger one. Even objects get a kind of retirement. Cleaning the bottom, lifting out the years. Every few years, or when water tastes off, repair day turns into cleaning day. That's a bigger event. Someone might be lowered with a safety rope, stand carefully on a firm, inspected base at the bottom, shovel silt into the bucket, remove dropped sticks, stones, or lost scraps, scrub slime from lower stones if needed. Understanding is simple. Less silt means more capacity. Less muck means clearer water. Those above pull up bucket after bucket of dark, heavy muck, piling it far away. It might later be spread in the garden once it's dried and safe. Nothing, not even well mud, is truly wasted in a careful house. When cleaning is done, the first water drawn afterwards might not be for drinking. It's poured on plants or used for rough washing until everyone trusts the clarity and taste again. Then, quietly, the well goes back to being ordinary. The mood of a repair day. There's a particular mood to these days. The courtyard is busier but more serious. Voices are lower. Tools clink. Ropes creak softly. Stones grind softly. People move around the well in patterns, not wandering randomly. There might be a pot of tea or simple food near the wall, short rest breaks in the shade, neighbors stopping by to offer advice or a pair of hands. Children watch from doorways, learning with their eyes what it means to maintain something. By evening, everyone is a little tired, dusty, and satisfied. The well stands looking almost the same as before, but everyone knows it is safer, cleaner, better. After the work, a first careful draw. When the repairs are done and the rope rehung, there's usually a small, almost ceremonial moment, the first draw. Someone, chosen, often the same person who first noticed the problem, lowers the bucket, feeling new textures, smooth rope under fingers, cleaner stone edges, a quieter pulley. The bucket dips and fills, it rises. People look into it. Is the water clear? Does the rope run straight? Does the beam hold steady without complaint? If all is well, they pour water into a jar, take a sip, and nod. No big speeches, just a simple, relieved nod. The house, too, seems to nod. The throat has been cleared. The voice of the well is calm again. A sleep lesson, your own repair days. You're not a well, but you have the same pattern. Most days you do ordinary drawing. Wake up, work, think, worry a little, rest a little. But sometimes your system sends small signs, tired in a different way, thoughts snagging on the same rough edge, moods creaking instead of bending, energy tasting off. Those are your personal repair days. You might clear your schedule a bit, drink more water, stretch and sleep earlier. Talk to someone. Say no to extra tasks. Tidy a cluttered corner that's been nagging at you. It's not indulgence, it's maintenance. Tightening your own stones, smoothing sharp edges, changing out a frayed rope of habit for something kinder. You don't have to do it daily,
but you do have to do it sometimes.
Most of the time, a courtyard well serves gentle needs. It answers morning thirst, fills cooking pots, cools hot foreheads, washes dusty hands. But behind all that softness, there's another truth every old house knows. If fire ever comes too close, the well is the fastest hope. Tonight, we'll sit with that quieter layer of readiness, not in a panicked way, but in the calm, practical way old households folded fire safety into their daily water habits. We'll notice where buckets stand, how people think about distance and time, and how the very existence of the well lets the house sleep easier, knowing that if something flares, they are not completely helpless. We'll keep the flames small and far away in our minds. This is not a story of disasters. It's a story of prevention and preparedness, of buckets that wait like patient guards beside the well. Fire in a world of wood and cloth. In many traditional homes, nearly everything that touched air could burn. Wooden beams and doors, reed mats and straw, cloth bedding and curtains, shelves, tools, baskets, roofs of thatch or shingles, fuel stacked near stoves and hearths. Cooking fires burned daily, lamps and candles flickered at night, braziers glowed in corners. Most of the time, all that fire stayed where it belonged, but everyone understood if it ever escaped, it could move very fast. So the courtyard well was not only a thirst solver, it was the standing promise that in an emergency, water was nearby. Even if nobody said that out loud every day, they arranged their lives as if it were true. Buckets that never wander far. In many homes, certain buckets had a quiet rule. They do not travel far. They do not store grain. They are not taken to the market, the fields, or the neighbor's yard. These are the fire buckets. You might see one or two sturdy wooden or metal buckets always kept near the well, perhaps hung on hooks or pegs, sometimes stacked inside one another, sometimes half-filled during risky times, like festivals with extra candles or very dry, windy seasons. They might be used occasionally for ordinary water tasks, but always return to the same spot, easy to grab and run with. You could think of them as part of the house's muscle memory. Hands know where to reach, feet know where to go. No searching, no where did we leave that bucket, not when it matters. Distance and speed, the courtyard path in an emergency. The well's location in the courtyard keeps another quiet geometry in mind. How long does it take from fire to water and back? Without ever drawing a map, people learn how many steps from the kitchen to the well, how many from a room where a lamp might be knocked over, how long it takes to fill a bucket and run. They might keep the well area as clear as possible, no clutter to trip over, avoid storing flammable things along the direct path, leave doors that lead to the courtyard easy to open quickly. All of this is rarely spoken of as fire planning. It's more like sense. Don't block that way. Keep this corner open. Buckets go back here, not in the storeroom. But behind the sense, there is an unspoken picture. Someone hurrying with a full bucket, not in panic but in urgency, needing a smooth, unhindered line between well and danger. Practice in disguise, everyday drawing as training. Everyday well use is also quietly training. When household members lower the bucket quickly but safely, pull it up without spilling too much, pour with control into jars and basins, carry full buckets without sloshing, they're practicing the very skills that matter in an emergency: quick but accurate filling, steady grip under weight, moving water without losing half of it, not freezing up at the curb. They don't think, I'm practicing for a fire. They think, I'm just fetching water. But the body is learning how far you can lean safely, how fast you can turn the handle, how tight to hold the bucket in one hand while the other works the rope. That muscle memory sits quietly in the background, ready if it's ever needed. Night lanterns and knowing the way in the dark. Because worry rarely sleeps, people also thought about night. If a lamp were to fall at night or a spark jump, it wouldn't happen under bright sun. It would happen in half light. So some houses kept a small lantern near the door that leads to the courtyard, practiced walking that route often enough that feet knew it even in the dark.
left the well area familiar and unchanged so it could be found by feel. You can imagine someone half awake, grabbing the lantern, stepping into the courtyard they know as well as their hands, reaching the well almost without thought. That predictability is soothing even when nothing bad ever happens. It's a mental safety net, the knowledge that if something went wrong, you wouldn't be starting from confusion. Small fires put out before they become stories. Most households had tiny incidents that never became tales. A singed cloth caught quickly and dropped into a basin, a spark that landed in straw and stomped out, a pan that boiled over and hissed on embers, a lamp that flickered dangerously and pinched off. In many of these moments, a bucket or bowl of well water is just there, already nearby. A basin by the hearth, a half-full bucket near the door, a jug within arm's reach. People rarely brag about these little rescues. They simply write the situation, clean up, and go on. But each one is a quiet reminder. We have water. We have a plan, even if we don't call it a plan. The well doesn't have to send up gallons in a chain gang bucket brigade to be protective. Sometimes its presence is felt in the fact that many small fires never grow at all. Burn days and extra caution. Sometimes fire is invited in on purpose, burning scraps in a brazier, clearing old brush in a corner, lighting many lamps or candles for a celebration. On those days, households often adjust their water routine, filling an extra bucket beforehand, just in case, keeping one basin close to the area where flames are concentrated, checking that rope and well are in good working order in the morning. Someone might say, half joking, let's make sure the well is in a good mood today. But behind the joking sits a simple idea. If we play with fire more than usual, we prepare more than usual. The well turns from background helper to active guardian on those days. The calm after choosing prepared enough. Of course, you can't live in constant readiness. No one can. You could, in theory, spend every day filling dozens of buckets just in case, hovering anxiously by the well, rehearsing emergency routes. But you can't eliminate every risk, and trying to do so only exhausts you. Instead, you can do what these old courtyards did. Keep a couple of buckets ready, a list of emergency contacts, basic savings or supplies, some simple plans for likely problems. Keep a clear path, know where your important documents are, keep some things in predictable places, maintain a few routines that are easy to follow even when stressed. Then, importantly, remind yourself, I have done reasonable preparation. Tonight is for rest. Your well is there. Your buckets exist. You do not need to replay every possible fire in your head before you're allowed to sleep. A sleepy ending scene. Now imagine our courtyard again, but gently, without drama. It's evening. The sky is turning purple-blue. A small cooking fire has already been banked and smoothed. Lamps glow. The air smells faintly of food and cool stone. Near the well, two sturdy buckets stand in their usual place, empty but ready. A third, half full from earlier washing, sits quietly by the kitchen door. Someone steps out, not in panic, just checking. Is the well cover set? Is the buckets where they should be? Is the path clear of tools and clutter? They look, nod once, and go back inside, closing the door softly behind them. No fire, no shouting, no need for heroism, just the simple comfort of knowing if something unexpected flared in the night, there would be water close enough to matter. The house can sleep a little deeper with that knowledge. So can you. Tonight, you don't need to imagine disasters. You only need to recognize that you've already placed your own buckets where they can be reached. Practical things, small preparations, not perfect, but enough. Let that thought be like a hand resting on the well curb one last time before bed. Steady, cool, reassuring. Then turn back, as they do, walk into the dim, safe rooms of your mind and lie down knowing that some quiet part of your life is watching over you. You are allowed to rest. The water is near. The night will pass.